Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. Today is, of course, Friday, July 24, 2014, and according to a recent interview by financial terrorist Alan Greenspan, who oversaw the Federal Reserve System, I think, for 18 years, who was responsible for the creation of the largest financial bubbles in the history of the world that soon collapsed right after his exit, post writing a couple books and his speaking engagements and making millions and millions of dollars and patting himself on the back, for pretty much all the credit, giving himself all the credit for record asset bubbles that created fake material wealth that really just was bullshit mortgage-backed securities propagated by the big banks, erroneous lending standards, giving out loans to anybody with a pulse so that they could make billions, if not trillions, and then when they engineered the collapse, cause and force bailouts on the American people, the taxpayer, and then steal in perpetuity from you and your children, just gave an interview. And he says post all of that, post 18 years of creating the largest financial bubble in the history of the world, that according to insiders on Wall Street and Washington, D.C., this is what your politicians told you folks. This is what these Wall Streeter gangbangers told you in 2008. If you didn't bail them out, it was going to be the end of the world. Remember, it was the black swan. It was going to be worse than the Great Depression, according to George W. Bush and people like John Thane and others among the banking elite. Now Greenspan says, just kind of casually, bubbles can't be stopped without the crunch. Former Fed chairman worries about false dawns. Ooh, so scary, so scary, Bernanke. A false dawn? It sounds like a movie title. And the looming Fed exit. Yeah, that's right. The Fed still hasn't exited. Rates are still at zero, trillions of dollars worth of stimulus, buying useless bullshit mortgage-backed securities, and just creating basically bailouts into infinity is still what the Fed is doing today. Yeah, we're approaching, what is it, 2014? So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 2014. And they're still running bailouts because, again, if they stop the bailouts, the entire economy, well, that's already crashed, but the fictitious stock market that's no longer a market will come to an abrupt end. In fact, it'll make 2008 look like a church picnic. We might be met with 50% unemployment, a stock market with the Dow at 2,000 after these gangbangers are finished with it, when the wheels finally come off and Rome burns to the ground like it did in the historical example. According to Washington, former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan has always been a student of the economy, the fake, faulty economy. Since the financial crisis, he's been a student of human nature. He says here in a quote, "There is definite evidence the economy is picking up. The financial system is finally beginning to lend." To who? The other big banks. "But what we don't know is whether when the recovery gets underway," and I find that hilarious. You mean we don't have a recovery yet? You mean we're how many years since 2008? And how much stimulus and record highs in the Dow and the S&P 500 breaking through new all-time highs? And you're saying the recovery isn't underway yet? My God! That is frightening. I can only imagine that we're going to be stepping into hyperinflation here. Maybe we already are. And then probably met with a rapid and deteriorating deflationary collapse post the hyperinflation run-up. So you're saying when the recovery gets underway, it's going to potentially run into another false dawn. Yeah, he's really worried about it. This is from the asshole. I'm not even going to hold back today. The asshole and the financial terrorist who ran the Federal Reserve for 18 years and literally destroyed the world, destroyed trillions of dollars, and helped to facilitate trillions of dollars worth of bailouts. This asshole here, the multi-million-dollar asshole who says bubbles can't be stopped without the crunch, and says we're still looking for a recovery. Yeah, I mean, doesn't that just prove you that the bailouts were just for the financial elite? It has nothing to do with you folks. It has nothing to do with the betterment of America or our children. It has everything to do with padding these assholes' pockets. Whether or not it's John Corzine, who stole $1.6 billion from his own customer accounts and walked scot-free, starting new hedge funds and cozies up to Obama and was a huge donor to Obama's re-election crony campaign. Those individuals, these assholes, now telling us we need to watch out for bubbles and false dawns. It just amazes me the American people don't have their pitchforks in the streets. But, as long as, Hollywood's pumping out those films that no one's going to anymore because everybody uses Netflix or just downloads internet and music pretty much for free nowadays, as long as the, consuming masses continue to watch TMZ and the Hollywood bullshit, follow how big Kim Kardashian's lubricated ass is getting and injected with the latest silicone, they really don't care. No pitchforks for America. They'll let assholes like these continue to walk down the street. Again, it just amazes me that John Corzine and these other individuals can even show their face, can even walk down a street in New York City or maybe a small town of America. Of course, none of them spend any time there. They're in their, $40 million, $50, $60 million penthouses in New York City. I mean, those are some of the real estate prices, up to $100 million in New York City for these assholes that rig the financial markets so it's a casino, it's no longer a market, bail themselves out when they make mistakes, and, well, it wasn't really a mistake because it was engineered, but they basically win on both sides. See, there's no risk. And then they, just cut themselves fancy book deals. Says bubbles can't be stopped without a crunch, and he's worried about a false dawn. Like we're really supposed to be frightened about that. In the meantime, as Alan asshole terrorist Greenspan, the financial gangbanger that he is wondering when the economy, and I guess when things are going to recover here in the United States, stocks are at an all-time high. I mean, this isn't bullshit, folks. This is just reality. Dow's at 17,000. I mean, it's at ungodly heights. I mean, if this isn't hyperinflation, I don't know what is. Dow 17,000, ungodly. The S&P 500, 1989, approaching the mental 2,000 mark. This is ungodly. The bond market in an obvious bubble. Mortgage market in an obvious bubble. Stock market in an obvious bubble. And these assholes over here want to know when things are going to recover. Well, everything's recovered for them, but you and I. All these assholes are buying up more and more real estate right now, more and more property, encouraging more and more bailouts. Well, the economy, I guess he's still looking for a recovery. In other news, Ukrainian Prime Minister resigns, and this was pretty much blacked out by the mainstream media for most of the morning earlier, and I tweeted this out. This is laughable. The U.S.-sponsored Ukrainian Prime Minister, Yatsenyuk, has announced his sudden resignation following turmoil in his government. Maybe this is another false dawn, as Alan Greenspan pointed out just a minute ago. So, to me, this immediately raises a red flag. Number one, the red flag being, does this indicate that the Ukrainian government, as many of us suspected, is behind the downing of Flight MH17? Is that the reality? Is that why he had to suddenly step down? It's also laughable, too, because this is the U.S.-sponsored and supported new government. It's already collapsed, folks, in just a couple months. That's how good the United States is in collapsing governments overseas. Yeah, it wants to support the freedom fighters, a.k.a. the terrorists on the ground that they help arm in places like Egypt as they go through revolution and re-revolution, and the new statist-controlled pro-Western government collapses overnight. Just collapsed here in Ukraine in the middle of great turmoil regarding the smokescreen that makes up Flight MH17. So we're still waiting for a formal investigation and report on that. I call bullshit on this too. I think this guy's embroiled. I think he's got dog shit all over him regarding this Flight MH17. Exactly why the sudden resignation and pretty much a blackout outside of a few reports that I've been able to find. Not to mention a third plane that disappeared off radar that I reported on before this video. In the meantime, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, basically just the loan shark of the world that's backed by the United States government. Of course, Russia, China, and the BRICS nations are trying to change all of this, but the IMF, the loan sharks that they are, they're basically just in debt the rest of the world to them, and that's how the United States and Western powers implicitly control these other nations through debt. Just one big debt Ponzi scheme, folks, whether or not it's the Federal Reserve or the IMF. They're cutting their global growth outlook as the U.S. recovery falters. Yeah, Alan Greenspan said it. It's a false dawn. Yeah, that's right. It's a false dawn as the IMF cuts its global growth outlook, saying it's less than optimistic. No growth, just trillions of dollars worth of bailouts. Yep, just extorting our children's future and all of your financial wealth tuning in. So these financial gang-banging assholes can buy up more real estate and, I guess, sail their yachts. It's a great country, isn't it, folks? Yeah, just bank bailouts. There's nothing more capitalistic than that, baby. Bank bailouts, trillions of dollars worth of stimulus to the rich. Yeah, there's nothing more free about that, Republic. Yeah, there's nothing more capitalistic than that. And isn't it a great country, just the corruption at such a high level, whether or not it's this asshole or anyone else? You know, Washington, D.C. is so infested by disease right now and corruption, it's a joke. And it's all interconnected with Wall Street, and the big money supports all this, folks. It's your tax dollars at work, these financial assholes here. Meantime, Facebook stock hits an all-time high. Well, these people are talking about false dawns, and the stock market's hitting all-time highs. Social media stocks, which people arguably say are also in a bubble, hits an all-time high after strong earnings report. Here we have a picture of Forward.us, pro-illegal immigration supporter. I'd like to see you house all these millions of illegals at your house, Mr. Zuckerberg. We know you won't do that. We know you won't do that, but you'll promote illegal immigration through Forward.us along with your other New World Order friends like Bill Gates, right? Well, here he is just enjoying the billions he's making. All this interconnected with the government, of course, too, because social media companies are big government today. Facebook is big government. Zuckerberg is big government. It's why he's running the party line for the Obama administration. It's this pro-Democrat, get all the illegals in as quickly as possible so they can re-elect Barack Obama for a third term. Yeah, like that isn't anti-constitutional. In the meantime, the U.S. GDP dropped in the first quarter of 2014. That was the latest report. Yeah, the prognosticators, these false dawners, were off by about 4%. Yeah, they actually predicted originally when everybody was tuned into it, but then people have short-term memory loss, greater than, I believe it was a 1%, somewhere along those lines, growth rate. They reported that the GDP grew in the U.S. Yeah, it turns out it actually contracted the other way. It actually lost growth. It actually lost value in the recent report. They're off by 4%. I mean, even if you and I got a real 4%, if you and I got this stuff much shit wrong, we would be fired immediately. But not these people. U.S. GDP drops a negative 2.9% in the first quarter, while the U.S. stock market hits an all-time high, baby. Yeah, that's right. The financial gangbangers are going to pump and dump this Ponzi scheme just like they did in 2008. Hey, hell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average might go to 20K, 40K, 100K before they dump it to single digits. This is all part of the plan, folks. This is the grand extortion. This is what the wealth transfer is. Steal from you and me, steal from the middle class and the poor, and transfer it to these financial scumbags right here. These banker assholes. These political assholes and the disease-filled filth that makes up Washington, D.C. today. Negative GDP growth. Oh, that's good news. New home sales in the toilet. Tumble in June at fastest rate in nearly a year. Well, God, these banks better get rid of this paper. Shit. I mean, they've been pumping and dumping this shit for years now. They better sell this to you. Yeah, leave you holding the hot potato, folks, just like they did in 2008. I mean, with home sales, new home sales especially tumbling at this rate, at this clip, they better dump this shit to you before it's too late, or they might need another bailout. Well, I guess that's not a big deal. They can just basically put the equivalent of a gun to your head anytime they want and just steal as much money from you as they can. I mean, if you and I did this at a liquor store or something and stole $1, if it was your third strike, you'd go to jail for life in federal pound-me-in-the-ass prison. But John Corzine steals $1.6 billion from his own customer accounts at MF Global and walks a free man. So look for them to get rid of this paper as soon as possible. I also had a technology report today that said Apple could be obsolete in 3 years, according to an analyst. I actually believe this. I actually believe that, post the Jobs era, post his genius, his innovation, his entrepreneurship, I actually think Apple probably is toast. I mean, they had to buy Beats for, I think it was $1 billion because they're failing to innovate right now. They bought a pair of headphones, which sounds good on paper because it costs like $1 to make and they sell them for like $100. They had to buy Beats and make other people wealthy because they really can't innovate themselves. I mean, the best that they've been able to put together are larger screen iPhones that aren't even out yet. I mean, that's how lame Apple is today post the Jobs era. Tim Cook and these guys, probably smart, but they're not the innovators. They're not the genius that was Steve Jobs. I think they should come out with like TVs or something, or Apple integrated TV. I mean, they should do something smart like that, but no, they're not going to do that. I just think it's a sign of the times. Again, kind of the social media bubble too here, Facebook hitting all-time highs, and Apple and these companies can totally crash overnight as well. I mean, remember MySpace and how that was taken over by Facebook? I mean, it just takes the next Mark Zuckerberg to change everything. That is, if we still have capitalism, which I'm actually not too sure about. So it really just looks like crony capitalism and bailout. So I don't know. With the socialization of America, maybe there isn't free competition anymore. Maybe this asshole just gets to ride off into the sunset like everyone else. All these other financial scumbags and whores that continue to rape all of you tuning in on a regular basis. Hey, what's on TV, Ma? Hey, the Kardashian clan on again? Well, what's she wearing? How big is her ass this time? Oh, sorry about that. Got distracted, guys. You know, after SEC rules, these are recent rules, again, people are just going to kind of throw under the table. The advice of this columnist, which is actually good advice, is stay out of money market funds. Now, money market funds, coming from a financial guy, remember I spent quite a few years in the business, actually worked for one of these Wall Street firms before I went rogue and became an independent journalist, launched AMTV out of my basement to millions of people around the world tuning in. You know, I have a degree of kind of knowing what I'm talking about here. Money market funds are supposed to be pretty much as safe as cash. Some advisors are saying, get out, run for your life. The SEC approved some new rule changes for money market funds this week. One of them requires a floating net asset value rather than a fixed $1 par value. He says this is a welcome addition to a new post-crisis reality. However, the proposed change, which would allow money managers to suspend redemptions by investors. Read that again. Suspend redemptions or charge them fees to redeem during volatile periods. So what this means, folks, during a volatile period, you know, the pump and dump scam when the hot potatoes passed, when the market inevitably crashes, this bubble created by the financial assholes like Alan Greenspan finally collapses. When you try to get your money, this is what the bank runs were in 1929 when you try to go to the bank. They can now stop it. They can say, you know what, you can't get your cash. No, we can't give you your own money back. So future bank runs, not just possible, they're going to happen. I guarantee it. Of course they'll happen in the future. And now they're behind the scenes putting in language, legal language, saying, we'll just, you know, casually suspend redemptions by investors. Few people notice this when you really need your money. See, the bank owns your money. You don't own your money, friends. The Federal Reserve owns your money. You've got your money tied up in financial institutions, at banks. You think your money's safe? Of course it's not safe. It's not yours. It's the federal government's. It's Alan Greenspan's. It's the criminal Federal Reserve that needs to be ended ASAP. It's their money. These aren't your accounts. Just like they forced the bailouts in 2008, you didn't have any decision in that. When they want to steal your money like they just recently did in Cyprus, and they're laying the foundation right now for this through the FDIC, those of you tuned in that are a lot smarter than I am that are probably covering this in more detail, no. They've already laid the framework for the future bank runs, folks. They've already are putting in legal language to suspend redemptions by investors or charge you fees for your own money. This is what's going to happen in the not-too-distant future. Your money and your family's future on financial lockdown because of these financial scumbag asshole whores like Alan Greenspan. This is what you have to look forward to. This is an opinion. This is CNBC, folks. It's right in your friggin' face. Right in the mainstream media, yet barely anyone notices. Just complacent, just kind of mesmerized with stars in their eyes, looking at the Dow at 17,000, S&P 500 at 1990, approaching 2,000. Just starstruck. Too busy staring and masturbating to Kim Kardashian's ass, looking at internet porn to give a shit. Americans love to be raped, folks. They love to be stolen from. They love the $1 trillion bailouts because they allow it to happen. No pitchforks here. You'll get pitchforks in Greece. You'll get pitchforks in Spain. We've seen them. We've seen the riots. But here in the United States, we just look at these guys with open arms and say, hey, man, just steal from us. Take all of our money. Take all of our future. Take all of our future children's opportunity. Yeah, that's right. Open our borders, America. Let them flood in from north, east, south, and west. We'll be the next collapsing USSR. We all know how well that turned out. They were literally feeding on dead human bodies. That's not an exaggeration, but people actually resorted to eating the dead during the post-USSR collapse. That's kind of the grim reality and the grim future we have to look forward to. If the American people don't stand up for themselves and they continue to allow these criminal whores, these financial terrorists like Alan Greenspan, who helps to propel the largest bubble in the history of the world over an 18-year tenure, to get away with the equivalent of financial murder. To say, hey, bubbles can't be stopped without a crunch and a false dawn. I'm Christopher Green. Get this out everywhere. Make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face. And click the link below to support our sponsor.